Hello, my name is Lee Presser. This is my show. I speak frequently to very interesting people. Some of these conversations are so exciting, so intellectually stimulating, I thought others might like to listen in. This is the reason we started recording Conversation with Lee Presser.
Welcome to Conversation with Lee Presser. Entrepreneurship is the process of identifying and starting a new business venture, sourcing and organizing the required resources while taking the risks and accepting the rewards associated with the venture. For those of you listening to this discussion, building a business, being an entrepreneur can be the beginning of controlling your own life. Business is a lot of hard work, but if you do it correctly, it will put you in a position to have power over the direction of your life. And that's the real American dream. Dr. Eugene Dokes believes in entrepreneurship. He built a real estate investment company in the early 2000s. Dr. Dokes later became a broker and began his own real estate sales agency. He's earned his Bachelor's in Business Administration from Columbia College. Later, he earned his MBA from Lindenwood University and his Ph.D. in Organizational Management from Capella University. He recently published a book that explores entrepreneurship, the Entrepreneurial System. Dr. Eugene Dokes, welcome to Conversation.
Thank you.
This is your first time here.
Yes, sir.
But we've been, we on this show have been talking about entrepreneurship quite a bit, and also in making sure that people are ready to actually go to work.
Sure.
There are some, we talked about this before when we talked on the phone. I said that there's some 3 million jobs right today that are open that businesses can't find people to hire because there aren't qualified employees
Sure.
for that.
Absolutely, absolutely. One of the things that I study and I talk about is how it's so important to have access to assets. And assets, when I talk about it, is from not just money, but it's also knowledgeable people that can do the job, that can do the work, that can support the economy, you know, based off of their ability to contribute to labor. And so my perspective on entrepreneurship, where I come from, is a little bit different. Like you said, I recently wrote a book. This here is the Entrepreneurial System, and it's just now recently gotten into the stores. And what it's about, what it really focuses on, is a little bit different. It just doesn't focus on entrepreneurship per se, but it focuses on policy and how policy affects entrepreneurship, how we can keep entrepreneurship growing strong in individual communities, and why it's so important to do that.
Well, explain what you mean by policy. You don't mean the entrepreneur has the policy. You're talking about something else, right?
Sure, absolutely. There's a term called entrepreneurial city, and the term literally means it's a community where entrepreneurs can thrive because of, not necessarily because, but because of participation from policymakers. So when policymakers say, you know what, let's do something to help entrepreneurs grow and establish their businesses, and they participate in those acts, that's what entrepreneurial city is. And so I studied that a little bit, and what I realized was entrepreneurship, while it can exist, and while we as people are very capable of establishing and growing businesses, today, based off of our system today, it's deeply entrenched with the policies, with the government policies, and with universities, and having people that can, where we can hire people that can participate in our business, having knowledgeable people and capable people. And that comes from the university, as well as what government is doing that can participate into the entrepreneurial growth.
Would you say this is why Silicon Valley developed the way that it did, because they had this political environment which encouraged it?
Sure, absolutely. And in fact, Silicon Valley was one of the bases of my book, even though I don't think I mentioned it in the book. All of this information started from a 3-4 year study that I conducted on Silicon Valley, Boston's Route 128, Houston's Research Corridor, and I looked at a local community where I'm living at the time, St. Charles County, and I studied areas like that, Silicon Valley, and I said, what's made these, why are they so successful? Why are they, if they were a nation of its own, why would Silicon Valley be ranked 7th in the world? Because what are policymakers doing that makes it a little bit easier? What are the entrepreneurs doing, first of all? But what else is happening in those communities that leads to such tremendous entrepreneurial growth? And what I found was that there's at least 28 things that happens that is contributed upon from policymakers, from universities, and from entrepreneurs that made this area so successful in entrepreneurship.
Well, name just a couple of things that you think are important that makes the political environment positive so that entrepreneurs can come to an area and develop.
Okay. Well, it's so hard to name just a couple because I see importance in all of them, but I'll tell you what I found was that...
Take your time. We have time here.
Okay. What I found was that there are 5 different types of policies. So, there's 28 policies in particular that I found that was being done in Silicon Valley, in Boston, and Houston, and I don't think that they all kind of conferred with each other. It just so happened that there's at least 28 things that all of these areas were doing. And I found these things and I started looking at them, and they can be lumped into different groups. In these 5 different groups, I use the acronym CRAIG, C-R-A-I-G, to remember what they are. And they all give access to certain things for entrepreneurs. And they give access to, one, the C is culture, access to relationships, access to assets, access to information, and access to government. And what I found is that if entrepreneurs have access to these things among a number of different types and ways that it needs to have access to it, then they tend to have an environment in which they can be more successful versus an area where they don't have access to those things.
Well, let's go back through these 5 that you just named. You started with culture. Mm-hmm. What do you mean by that?
Okay. And I'll just say that the acronym, I say it that way because it's the only way I can have a cool acronym for it. No way is it more important than the other. But culture, really what that's about is, it's actually a really important one. Look at communities that are known for certain types of business. You got Vegas, you've got Kissimmee, Florida, or Orlando, where it's known for family fun and Disney World. And think of other areas. In fact, one of my favorite is Aspen, Colorado. I love to use Aspen for this particular examples because Aspen is one of those areas where we can significantly see the culture change based off of entrepreneurs' involvement. In the 1930s, Aspen had a resident level of only 700 people. It was a mining community. Nobody knew that it existed. And theoretically, we should not even know it exists today. If you really think about it, it's engulfed around mountains. There's no easy way to get there. There's no reason for us to know it exists, but we do because of an entrepreneur. In the late 1930s, entrepreneurs said, we've got great snow here, great mountains. Why not turn this community into a ski resort, into a ski town? Built a ski resort, and then by the mid-1940s, it became well known for its ski community, and the culture there changed. Entrepreneurs often need access to the culture because when it's time to establish a business, we often have to go to government, go to the community and say, we're going to do this. We have to get licenses. We have to get approval. And sometimes the community is fighting against it. And sometimes they're supporting it. We need access to culture. And likewise, also, you need to have a community that supports risk as well. And if a community just doesn't support risk and entrepreneurship, it's really hard for entrepreneurs to get started. And that's why culture is so important.
Okay. And then the next?
Relationships, access to relationships. Relationships are really important because obviously there's that networking aspect and how relationships can cause to more business growth. But there's really 2 terms that are really important and why relationships, and the staple for why relationships are so important. These terms are knowledge spillover and the agglomeration effect. Knowledge spillover, if you think about a doctor, an ENT in his home, this doctor, he's an ENT, he talks about his job all the time, he talks about what he's learning, he's reading magazines. Eventually the wife and the kids start to pick up some ENT information. Yeah, and they start, even though they're not the professional, they start to pick up some of this information. And if you think about that in terms of a business, the same thing happens. If you have a large business that is constantly producing information, or even a university producing information, conducting studies, this information can then spill over and other businesses and other entrepreneurs can use it, which leads us to information, which I won't go to just yet, because I want to touch on the agglomeration effect. And what's really cool about the agglomeration effect in areas like Silicon Valley, Boston's Route 128, the agglomeration effect was so phenomenal. It took over. What this is it's, imagine Apple. Look at the company Apple and how they came out with the iPad, the iPhone, everything else, the Shuffle, everything else. Well, how many other organizations became multi-million and even billion-dollar organizations because of Apple? What they were able to do was kind of piggyback off of those innovative ideas and create accessories and Bluetooth things and packaging and devices, apps. The agglomeration effect says that one entrepreneurial, one rapidly growing organization can lead to other organizations growing. And what tends to happen is, if relationships are established, they tend to happen in the same area. So if you look at Silicon Valley, we call it the high-tech region because a lot of these companies are high-tech companies that have gotten information from each other from knowledge spillover, or they work with each other from the agglomeration effect.
I guess a small example in the St. Louis area would be like Ballpark Village. You've got the ballpark, and then they built this Ballpark Village because there were so many people coming there to the ball game.
Absolutely. So yeah, when you have an organization, you know, and that is doing well, that people know about, they can kind of lean on it a little bit. That's why it's in days past, there used to be a lot of recruiting of large organizations, and the goal was not to bring a large, probably even dying organization to a community so that they can provide jobs. It was really about them providing information so that smaller organizations can grow. We just don't do that as much anymore, but that's why it was always so important.
And then the third item?
I'll skip over assets for just a second and go to information. Okay. Because agglomeration effect and knowledge spillover leads straight into information. Information is to entrepreneurs what, if you're looking at your vehicle, what the starter is to your car. You cannot go anywhere. The car can look beautiful, it can have nice shiny tires, it can look amazing, but it won't get you from point A to point B if you can't start it. And that's what information does for a business. Every business owner needs information, whether it's significant amounts of information such that allows them to be able to capitalize off of it and grow their business. So maybe it's an entrepreneurial idea, or whether it's just information such as where do I go and file for a business name. We need information for those things. You can't establish a business or grow your business without certain types of information. And it's really important that government provides information or provides access to it, because there are certain times when government should not be trying to give information, but they can at least just kind of say, hey, we've got this platform that we kind of create so that information can go back and forth. And a great example, what I like to use for information, if you think about McDonald's, we all know what McDonald's is today, the organization McDonald's, the restaurant. That company, when it was first established, when it was first grew into what it is today, before that happened, there was a guy by the name of Ray Kroc who had access to information. This guy was a blossoming entrepreneur who was selling milkshake machines. He noticed that that McDonald's brothers were buying a lot of milkshake machines. How did he know that? Because he was selling them. So he had access to information that you and I would not have had access to. This information led him to say, I'm going to go visit them and see what they're doing while they're buying so many milkshake machines. He went there. He decided that, wow, they've got a great business going. I can probably grow this faster and better. He went in and bought in. And that's how McDonald's grew to what we knew today, because of Ray Kroc having access to that information. Had he not realized that, had he not noticed that, who knows if the McDonald's brothers alone could have done what McDonald's is today. So that's why information is so important to the growth of businesses.
Just shows that a leader makes all the difference in the world.
Absolutely. Yeah.
I mean, you mentioned Apple. Well, you can't say Apple without Steve Jobs.
Absolutely.
You can't say Microsoft without Bill Gates.
Sure, absolutely. I mean, which kind of leads me to assets, the one we skipped over. Assets, it's all about not just money, but we do need money. Entrepreneurs need money to be able to establish their business, to grow their business, to invest, to take risk. But one other really important thing is we need leadership, we need skill, And if we don't have access to skills, if we don't have access to leaders that we can bring into our organization, then our organization might not be as powerful or grow to be as large as what they can be. And entrepreneurship, as we know, is so important. 80% of our jobs come from entrepreneurs. So when we look at that, we need to make sure that we have leaders leading these organizations, whether they're in charge, whether they own the organization or are just in charge. We need strong people that can grow these businesses to continue producing these jobs. So, that final one would be government, access to government. And really what that means is that we just need to be able to contact our government officials, to work with them, and it not all be about money. Sometimes we just need to be able to say, hey, listen, this idea is really going to hurt our businesses, and it's not. And I can think of many local examples, and I'll tell you why local is so important, why I tend to focus on local in just a second. But I could think of many local examples in St. Charles County, where I'm from at least, where we have lots of wineries, and wineries needed certain types of policies created so that they could be able to protect their winery businesses. And it's so important to St. Charles County. Or for instance, there was once recently there was we were doing work on the bridge going from St. Charles County to St. Louis County, and they were going to shut down one side of that bridge, which would have pushed traffic all the way around. In fact, that happened while I was conducting my research for this business, and I was interviewing several entrepreneurs, and all of the entrepreneurs, and I would say, what bothers you? What's happening right now? And they're all, I'm so mad they're going to shut down this bridge. It's going to eat into my business. And I said, well, why don't you go talk to them and tell them why they shouldn't do that? What are some other ways that we can handle that? Many of them did. And what ended up happening was they ended up not shutting down the bridge. They shut down one so they can repair it, but they opened the other and allowed 2-lane traffic to go on one side of the bridge. I don't know. I like to say I contributed to that, but I don't know if I did or not. But entrepreneurs having access to government and being able to go in and voice their concerns did lead to these entrepreneurs being able to continue their success.
And business and governments being smart enough to be able to be open to the ideas of entrepreneurs rather than say, well, that's the way we do it. You'll just have to live with our policies.
Absolutely. And government, it's tricky because these policymakers, they have to, one, protect the people, but then at the same, and the community, but they also have to, because the way that America is set up as a capitalist society, you have to allow businesses to grow. You're not really helping the people if businesses can't grow, because then we can't grow our economies, which allow the communities to thrive. So it's really, it's a sticky slope, and that's what was that's kind of how it's an untouched topic, mostly in the topic of entrepreneurship, but that's what got me so involved in it, because of my strong interest in policy and knowing that we have this responsibility to the people, but we also have this strong responsibility to industry also.
Of course, there is that one little thing of finance. Mm-hmm. When you're in an area that has people who are willing to invest in other people and their businesses, that will influence whether you're going to see a lot of entrepreneurship in an area or not, right?
Sure, absolutely. I know that in Silicon Valley and Boston's area, there were lots of finance and lots of money available to help these businesses to grow. Where you come to certain communities and it's just not there. Well, why is that? And they tend to focus on, they tend to go where all the growth is. Why is that? Because they often know that where growth is where more growth is going to come from, because of the agglomeration effect. So these investors they're spending their time searching out organizations. And if I had a business idea here in St. Charles County, and someone had a business idea, the exact same thing over in Silicon Valley, they would probably rather invest there versus here, even if I was a better leader, just because that person has access to more information, more availability of the agglomeration effect. The community is set up to embrace the growth of entrepreneurship there. And so they look at those things. And that's why it's really important for policymakers to focus on the entrepreneurial system and to strengthen it in their own community. And I'll explain what I mean by that in just a second. But why it's important for them to do that, because if they don't, then they kind of push investors out of the way. And if I could briefly talk about what I mean by the entrepreneurial system, because I use that term, I have the title. Really, what I mean by that term, it's a term that I created that focuses on every aspect of entrepreneurship. No longer can we think of entrepreneurship as simply a person who establishes a business. I know now, by fact, that policymakers often contribute to it. When I was conducting my study, I asked every entrepreneur that I had interviewed, do you believe that government can affect your business? Can it lead to your business dying or grow? And they all said absolutely yes, and they gave me all these reasons why. And well, if we can say that they can lead to it dying and ending and hurting our business, and that means that it also can contribute to our business positively as well. The entrepreneurial system focuses on a community. It says in a given community, policymakers can affect our business. And so it's everything that those policymakers are doing to help grow our business. It's everything that the entrepreneurs are doing to grow their business. And it's also everything that universities are doing to contribute to the community as well. And that might be giving information, it's giving knowledge and conducting studies, releasing studies, and producing knowledgeable people as well. And it's also, the entrepreneurial system also is the citizens and how they are participating. Are they participating in purchasing, or are they saving, or what are they doing? Are they supporting entrepreneurs? Do they embrace risk? It's all those things.
Are they going to Walmart, or are they going to the small shop on Main Street?
A strong entrepreneurial system are going to have policymakers significantly focused on entrepreneurship and entrepreneurial growth, universities focused on it, entrepreneurs focused on it, and the citizens focused on it as well.
Mm-hmm. So you've covered a lot of territory here in your entrepreneurial system. They can buy the book and read what you've said there. Where else can they go to learn more about entrepreneurship and the things that you've talked about?
When I was conducting the study, there were a number of studies that were released on the term entrepreneurial city. And that's probably one of those terms that you can just kind of Google, and you may get, it's hit and miss, you may find information, the entrepreneurial city. But really there's not a lot of information on it. And that was the main reason why I wrote the book. When I conducted this study, and I was overseen by a couple of PhDs, and one in New York, some in Minnesota. And when we got done conducting the study, they all said, you have to put this information in the book. You have to. And it's because there's really no one place where this information can be found. And that was why it was so important for me to put that together, and that's why I had done so.
I guess I was kind of leading towards like a university or college or something like that, but you're saying that even there, they're not focused on the things that you've discussed here.
I have found maybe 3 researchers in the country, besides myself, that have significantly focused on this over the last 10 years. And so, and mostly it's research studies that have been produced, and this is the first time a book had been produced on this topic. And the universities themselves, they just do the thing. They just kind of know what to do now in those areas, and they don't so much focus or release that information. And so that's why it's really important for entrepreneurs or even government to maybe work with a good consultant or someone like that that can kind of guide them to these types of policies, or just pick up the book or pick up some type of information to read, because it's really not there. I tend to focus on, and you might hear me say local community, I tend to focus on local community. People tend to say the national economy. We tend to look at national politics. We look at what the president is doing rather than what the mayor is doing. And we think that what's happened nationally affects us so much. But really, when you look at economy and what the economy is, the national economy is nothing more than a sum of all the local economies. Mm-hmm. And if the local economies can all come together, start growing, entrepreneurs and establishing a strong entrepreneurial systems to where entrepreneurs can come and do their thing, then you would have a strong national economy.
Exactly. And too many people don't understand that, you know, these big companies that we see today started out as little companies in the beginning.
Absolutely.
And that that's one of the reasons America does well, is because we have these big companies that started out as little acorns at one time and grew into big oaks.
Absolutely.
Now you, here in the last, I guess we got about 3 minutes left here, you are also teaching. Are you teaching this, and where at?
I do. I teach at Lindenwood University, and I teach managerial, I teach marketing, and I also teach entrepreneurship. Anytime I have the opportunity to discuss management or entrepreneurship, I have the students pick up this book and I teach them, because a part of the entrepreneurial system is professors and universities doing their part and equipping the students to go out and do their part, to either create the jobs or significantly lend to the jobs that are created.
And the students that come to you, do you find that they are like eager to start their own businesses, or are they more eager to be hired by somebody and just be paid?
Oh, students want to start their businesses. Like, I have many students that have already started their own businesses. We write business plans in the classes, and they're eager to go out and establish their businesses. And so it's really exciting to see that and just to be a part of that as well.
Because, well, a generation or so ago, I mean, what was it, the corporate man, I mean, that was the objective. You come out of school and you get hired on, you know, everybody's mother and grandmother. Well, get a good job, get a good job. But you're saying that
not
that's
anymore.
changed.
Not anymore. Now these students are creating jobs while they're in college. Look at Facebook. I mean, they establish that while in school. And I have the same thing. I'm seeing that every day at Lindenwood, where students are establishing businesses. They're asking me for business advice.
What kind of businesses have you seen that these young people are working on?
I have some that are, I have one that's working on an app, and they're working on different app stores and things like that. I have another one that's working on, she's put together a magazine that for students, for college students, with different ads and different things like that. I have a photography student that started her own business in photography, media recordings, and so many students now. I have another one that creates wreaths and mailbox tops, and just whatever their skill are, they're just turning it into their own businesses, and they're not so much looking at getting jobs in these areas. They're saying, what can I do to be in charge of my own destiny with the skills that I have?
And are they answering the bell? I mean, at the end of the day, you create a plan, and here in just 30 seconds, are they creating the plan and then living up to the plan?
And the students that I have, I am seeing that happening. I am seeing them creating the plan and living up to it. They are eager to go out there and to establish their businesses. They're picking up the information. They're asking me. I mean, I'm really proud in this new generation that we have coming out of the universities now. I know there's going to be lots of jobs created through them.
You're talking the millennial generation, I guess. That's what they call them. Thank you very much for your time and being here with us. I appreciate your coming and talking about entrepreneurship, which is an important subject.
Okay. Thank you.
I've been speaking with Dr. Eugene Dokes. He's a professor over at Lindenwood College in St. Charles County. He's also written a book, The Entrepreneurial System, which if you're interested in starting your own business, you might want to take a look at. And if you're an academician, take a look at it as well. I want to thank you for being with us. You can show this to your friends on YouTube. Goodbye.